The flute is really, really, really old. The flute is one of the oldest instruments that we know of, but the flute that we play on now is only about 250 years old-ish, give or take. The flute used to be entirely made out of wood with a bunch of holes instead of keys, but eventually we added keys to them. But that's why the flute is still considered a woodwind, because just like the other clarinet and oboe and things of those natures, they started out on wood rather than metal, so it's a woodwind. This instrument is held in a very particular way, and it makes a sound in a very particular way, and I'm going to tell you about them. So, when you are trying to make a sound on the flute, you have to act like you are spitting out little grains of rice from between your lips, like this. And you're going to put that directly on top of this lovely little hole. So the mouthpiece here, right here, it has this nice lip plate that your lips are going to rest on top of. But if you were to blow directly into the flute, nothing's going to happen. So you want to make sure that you're blowing across, not into. So I'm going to put my lip directly on top of this lip plate so that the hole is facing the ceiling. And then I'm going to blow across and a little bit down, not too much though. Another way that you can find where this flute sits is if you take your finger and put it right under your lip where you have a little chin shelf. You can feel that shelf where your finger is setting, and that's exactly where this lip plate is going to go. It's going to sit on that little chin shelf. So that's a little bit about how you make the sound. As far as how to hold the flute goes, you want to make this shape with your left hand, and you want to hold a little C or a little bubble in your right hand. So your left hand, which is making this sort of shape, is going to hold the flute by letting it sit on this fleshy bit of your hand. The fleshy bit of your hand, right? That way, my thumb can hit this little thumb key here. My top fingers here are going to go as follows. I'm going to put my first finger here, which is going to skip this key right here. So the first key is skipped, and then my finger goes here, and then I'm just going to put them down until I can hit this weird little pinky key. So I did skip this key here too. So there's this first finger is sort of flanked by two keys that you don't press. But aside from that, it's pretty much straight in a row. The right hand is easier. So we have our bubble shape, and we're going to locate the pinky first. Pinky is going to go onto this weird little key that is the first key off of the foot joint. The very first key off the foot joint. So once your pinky is on the first key off the foot joint, all you have to do is put your fingers down in order. So 1, 2, 3. That's it. Very, very easy. The thumb goes on the bottom to hold, and that's how we have our flute. The flute is a very wobbly instrument if you do not have correct balance. So you really want to make sure that your thumb is directly underneath your first finger and that your flute is resting on this part of your hand. And then when you press it against your face, you have at least 4 points of contact. So the chin, the hand, the thumb, and this pinky. And that's going to keep it on my face even if all of my fingers are off of it. So that is how you hold the flute. The posture for playing the flute is also very important. Just like with any other woodwind or wind instrument, we have to make sure that we are sitting nice and tall and that our feet are nice and on the ground and not crossed. And the other main thing with the flute is that you want it to basically be parallel. We really don't want droopy flute. We also don't want this. We don't want the flute to be going up into the ceiling. So we want to make sure that everything is nice and parallel. I like to think about my keys looking directly at the ceiling. If my keys are looking directly at the ceiling, they're in a good spot, because if they're down here, they're looking at the wall, not the ceiling. So that is a little bit on how flute posture works. Oh, and I should also mention elbows. You don't want to fly away like a chicken. We want to make sure that our elbows are down and relaxed and right next to us. So that is how you hold the flute. The flute sound is probably one of the highest sounds in the orchestra, but it also can be lovely and low. So here's a general demonstration of what the range sounds like. So here's the low. Now we're in the middle. Then we're gonna go real high. That being said, you don't typically need to go into that super, super high range very often, but we can, because that is one of the things that the flute can do that other instruments can't. But when it's in the lower range, it has this really beautiful, deep, rich sound. When it's in the higher range, it can be very bright and playful. So, at the very, very beginning of this video, I played a little bit of the Mozart Concerto in G, which had a little bit of high, a little bit of low, but it was all very fast and very active. And so I wanted to play something a little bit different for you here at the end. I'm going to play a little bit of the Carmen Entr'acte by Bizet, which I think is just very, very beautiful and shows off this wonderful tone quality that the flute has. So, without further ado, so that's a little bit of Bizet's Carmen. So I hope that you learned something from this. If you take anything away from this at all, just know that the flute takes so much air. Your lungs have to be so strong to play the flute, and it's all because of the way that we make this sound with the blowing across and not into. So if you are playing the flute, welcome. I'm very excited that you've chosen this instrument.